Ray's comments really teed up my presentation in terms of what he's getting over the internet and the lack of information and the speed. It's just incredible out there, and I'll get to that in a little bit. A little bit more about us. I've been in this business now for 32 years. This is my fourth recession and recovery, and I would say we're in recovery right now. I'm definitely feeling it. Our company is back to a run rate that exceeds where we were in 2008 before the fall, and we're seeing continued growth coming ahead. Every recession and recovery has been different for us. Everyone's been different. And all I want to do is scroll back and just speak about the last two for right now. They're the most relevant right now. In year 2000, we were really steaming along great, going fantastic. We were all part of the information technology sector. We had customers like Motorola. We were making high volume products, really moving. And all of a sudden, it was really weird. Came off of the holiday, came back around January 2nd to my office, had issued my operating plan for 2001, and all I could see in email, and fax was still being used back then, were MRP systems with actually almost handwriting stuff, cancel, cancel, cancel. I was like, wow, what's this all about? And sure enough, in January 2001, somebody turned the spigot off. And about February of that year, somebody welded it shut. I'll never forget that. We dropped about 22% that year. It was really a fight for us. And what was tougher for us back in that recession, if you can think back on it, was 2001. China became part of the picture. Remember, they were admitted to the WTO. Now, at the time, we were about a $10 million company, 60 people, and kind of lean in terms of, when I say lean, I don't want to use the word lean, that's not the term, thin in terms of management. My larger competitors had begun to figure this out already. They were already looking to set up operations in China. And they were wondering why it wasn't setting up an operation in China. And it just didn't appeal to me. I didn't want to do it. Well, scrolling ahead, I'll never forget, it was about September 2003. We were one of the last ones to recover, I think. At least I felt we were anyway. Everybody else seemed to be recovering. People were buying houses, right? Remember that was back in those days? Things were happening. We were still having a tough time. I'll never forget being on a trip and laying in bed all night and saying, you know what? This is what it must be like to go out of business. That's how profound it was for me, okay? So, I've been there, if any of you are feeling that right now, and I'll never forget that feeling because it gave me a lot of impetus to never go back there again. Question, do the show of hands thing. Are any of you in component manufacturing businesses, making components? Okay, only a few. Wow. I'll bet this room would have been full of more people making components 10 years ago. Okay? Well, those who are in the component manufacturing business, I guess you've seen your lead times compressed. Yes, we get that. Design to cycle time compressed. People design our stuff now, and they want it in an unreasonably fast lead time. We spent about 5 years saying, what's up with these customers? I guess we have to educate them that they need to put more lead time in the design process. I guess we have to educate them to give us more lead time when they give us the order. Heck, our tooling suppliers need lead time. Why can't we get them to do that also? We finally saw the light. We invested in water jet cutting technology to enable us to make gaskets, prototypes, and samples at a very short lead time. And that's part of our story. Let me just say one more thing about us before I move along. Barry mentioned lean in the very beginning of his presentation, and we have adopted lean principles. We've taken on lean in a big way. In 2007, we began a lean journey, and my goal in lean wasn't so much cost reduction, but it was to help us to move faster. We had to move faster, okay? Because we just saw that the only way we could differentiate our company from the other companies out there, and especially, by the way, all of my competitors who had operations set up in Asia, was lead time. So we were all about lead time reduction. And you know, we had Kaizen events on our estimating and quoting process. And I'm embarrassed to tell you how long it used to take, but now we can do it virtually at the desk for simple components. Because you know how it goes. Component guys, a few of you out there, customer calls you, I just sent you an email, where's my price? Well, I got to get my system, no, where's my price? Okay, so that's how it is these days. That's how we see it. So our business, really, we also thinned out our product line. We used to try to be all things to all people. Heck, we were a rubber gasket manufacturer. What do you want? Hose, belts, matting, you name it. We were an old industrial mill house. In fact, what I get a kick out of is when I run into somebody who used to buy from us many, many years ago, they say, I know you guys. You don't have to tell me what you're all about. You're the guys that have all the old mill supply stuff. We'll know more. We had to thin that out of our product line. We had to really focus. We began to focus on silicone rubber and other high-performance elastomers. Now, I wish I was to say I was as smart as Ed with strategic planning stuff, because when I look at these industries served, we used to be big in automotive at one time. We used to sell to power tool manufacturers. We used to sell to the appliance sector. Well, a lot of that stuff's being made in Asia right now. And I wish I could say that I, in a brilliant move, came up with these markets, okay? Well, if you look at some of these markets, these are products that generally aren't made in China. Instruments that measure contamination, okay? Medical diagnostic equipment, companies like Baxter, Becton Dickinson. It was more like being a fighter going 15 rounds and being pummeled into a corner. This is what I had left to work with, okay? But what we realized is what we had to offer the customers in these sectors is what they wanted. And what we had to learn was we weren't going to go into the front door and sell purchasing anymore, because by then it was too late. What we had to learn to do was go through the traditional back door and start pulling on engineers. Because what we learned is unless we got involved in the design cycle and got our material in the drawing, the deal was done. It could go to a bid auction, okay? And so to command an audience with engineering, we had to get better technically, we had to provide better material support, we had to provide prototypes, and we had to learn how to be a better ally to the engineering community. I'm going to talk about two programs that we ran with DVIRC. We had a very successful experience providing a solution to a manufacturer of wind turbines, Gamesa. You might have heard of it. In fact, if you've been riding on the Pennsylvania Turnpike over the last couple of years, perhaps you've gotten behind one of those big trailers that's taking a big white structure made of composites, wind turbine blade. They're now being made in Evansburg, Pennsylvania, so we've spent some time out there also. But we solved the problem for them. The challenge was these big white turbine blades are made of composite, and they're strong enough to withstand the effects of being out in the wind and rotating properly, but they're strong like an eggshell, okay? You can squeeze an eggshell in your hand and it won't crack as easily. If you drop it, you'll fracture it and you'll have a problem. And so they were having an issue with wind turbine blades cracking, okay, due to bad handling. And so we developed a silicone rubber cushioning pad with a high grippy surface. And we thought, man, I'll bet everybody in the world wants one of these things, you know? So what we had to do is figure out how we're going to approach this marketplace, because we figured it was a great thing. Well, we enlisted the help of DVIRC's marketing team, and what we wanted to do, after we figured out the solution with Gamesa, was figure out who else in the wind turbine industry would have an application for this. And we knew there were a few out there, we just didn't know how to go after them. So we did the thing where we got on the phone with Vestas out in Colorado. We heard about them, big Danish manufacturer. That didn't work very well. Called a couple of companies and tried to get in the front door. That didn't work very well. So we asked DVIRC to identify manufacturers of wind turbine blades, wind turbine systems in the U.S., and begin a scouting project. And what we looked at was not only wind turbines, but also the blades, the towers. What we thought that the real sweet spot we could sell into was the logistics issue of who was concerned when a blade was cracked. I'm not a very good phone caller, and we didn't have that skill set in our company. We originally thought we could call them ourselves, but it was much better to have DVIRC scouting team making those phone calls. That's what they do. They're good at it. However, what we learned, what we thought was going to be a home run, was that all of a sudden, like everything else in the economy, the wind turbine sector got really soft. If you remember, we had gasoline at $4.50 a gallon in July of 2008. And we had fantastic projections from Gamesa to sell a lot of product. What happened when energy dropped is all of a sudden the lights were turned out, also in wind turbine technology. There weren't any more units being built. So we learned a lesson. Let's pull out of that for the time being. Let's find something else. And those of you might think, well, it looks like a failure. No, that was a success for us. We were able to take our mental, our thinking resources away from the wind turbine sector and say, okay, what is next beyond that? And to me, that was a very helpful exercise. Now, what do we have? We do have a lot of market data. We know who the companies are who are making turbines in the U.S. Yes, they're still slow, okay? Gamesa's still slow, we know that. But I have a belief that one of these years that's going to come back. Makes sense.